Welcome back to Face the State. I'm Ariana Bennett. Thank you for staying with us. Well, I'm back with Washoe County DA Chris Hicks. Chris, thank you again so much for your time.
My pleasure.
All right, you've been in the office a little over 3 years now?
Elected as the district attorney for, almost 3 years.
Okay, and one of the kind of unusual parts of your job is deciding whether officer-involved shootings are justified. I imagine that's got to be hard.
Well, you know, an officer-involved shooting situation is difficult all the way around. I mean, you have someone who's in most situations been killed, and you have an officer that's been put in a position to have to make that decision to pull that trigger. And you add in kind of the volatility nationwide of those situations. So it is difficult. One of the things I decided to do about 3 years ago is to start doing public reports on our officer-involved shootings. And that was because, you know, I get binders, 2-3 feet high of paperwork about these cases, and I read the entire thing before I make my decision. But I thought, you know, there'd be a real value with the community being able to see that as well. And they don't just need to take my word for it when I say, hey, it's justified. And so we started drafting public reports, and they take a lot of time. But within those reports, I include witness accounts, I include photographs of the evidence, photographs from video, I include the law that controls my decision. And so the public at large, if they don't want to take my word for it, can go through and read and determine on their own, if they'd like, whether or not it was justified. And so I've had great response in the community from that, and I think it's important to kind of maintain the integrity of the system, that they know that we are looking at them closely, of course. But in every case that I've looked at thus far, you know, the officer was put in that unfortunate position, and it was justified. And you know, we just hope that that doesn't happen often.
Obviously, it's a tough call to make, saying it's not justified. But I imagine, you know, that would be a call that you'd have to make at some point if it ever wasn't justified. That's just hard. I mean, you work with the law enforcement community, right?
Well, of course. I have a great relationship with our local law enforcement. I'm very proud of it. We work very well together. That being said, I'm sworn to do my job. And my job involves prosecuting people who commit crimes. And so if it came to the point where an officer was not justified in that action, we would prosecute, because that's what I sworn to do. And so we take each case as we go. Our officer-involved protocol in this community is very sound. The way we investigate the cases is very sound. And so hopefully we don't have many of them.
There you go. All right. Now you have about a year left in your term, and then 2018 comes. Are you running for re-election?
Absolutely. I plan on formally announcing it in the near future. But I love this job. I consider myself very fortunate to be able to do it in this community. I was born and raised here. My friends are here. My family's here, and it means a lot to me to be a part of it. And so I'm very proud of what we've done thus far. But there's a lot more I want to do, and I really want to continue to bring this office to the height that it can be.
So what is top on your to-do list? What's still left to do?
Well, I want to continue to build the Child Advocacy Center that is proving to be so valuable. So that's never going to lose as a priority of mine. I'm very interested in starting an elder exploitation, elder abuse unit. In fact, the last 2 years I've gone to the county and tried to get funding for it, because it's a reality that we need to face. So that's definitely on my list of one of my agenda items going into the future.
Okay. Now, in the course of your job, obviously, it is your job to seek justice and put criminals behind bars. Does it ever concern you, when we look at overcrowded prisons and recidivism rates, people reoffending even after they've served their time, that maybe prison isn't the best option, that maybe we need to seek something else, that there's a better system?
Well, I think it's important to always examine the system and make sure we're doing the best practices we can. The simple truth is right now, for example, as I mentioned earlier, is we have specialty courts, and they're valuable, to give someone an opportunity to kick their addiction and to get back into the real world game as opposed to the criminal game. But the reality is if people don't want to do better and they're going to continue to victimize our community, I will always put victims first. That's all I've ever done, and that's all I'll ever do. And if it comes to that, then you have to put them in prison. Now, to answer your larger question, we do see some people that come out of prison and are very successful. So we know it can be done. It just requires a dedication to it.
Right. And it's not, you know, the easiest thing in the world when criminal records prevent people from, in a lot of cases, getting housing, you know, finding jobs. It's a tough system, and that's, you know, not on you. That's just the way it is.
Without a doubt, it's a tough system to come out of prison with a felony conviction. I certainly recognize that, and that's why it's so important to educate our youth, hopefully to prevent them falling into that world. And then offering, like I said, low-level offenders the ability to try to fix themselves before they become those, you know, hardened criminals or with felony convictions. And so we're always walking that line, balancing what is justice, because, as you said, you know, my job is to seek justice. And sometimes justice is putting someone in drug court. Sometimes justice is putting someone in prison for 50 years. It depends on the circumstance.
Now, last time you were on Face the State, you said you're a strong advocate for keeping the death penalty. Given that Nevada is facing its first execution in a long, long time, and there have been some issues with finding the drugs to do the lethal injection because the drug companies don't want to supply it. Has that shaken your resolve at all when it comes to pursuing the death penalty?
It hasn't. It's the law on our books. It's routinely supported in Nevada. An overwhelming majority believes in the death penalty. It's a little ironic to me that a lot of the anti-death penalty opponents petitioned or campaigned so hard against the drug companies that the drug companies stopped providing the actual drugs used. And now they're turning around and saying, well, you can't use these new drugs, we want you to use the old ones. It's a little disingenuous. I do know that the Department of Corrections, I wrote Director Zarunda a letter because I'm the president of the Nevada District Attorneys Association, asking if they would be able to carry out an execution. And he wrote me back and said, we have a protocol in place, we have the drugs in place. They're certainly looking into those drugs. They're not going to come in haphazardly and not do such an important event correctly. And so, no, my resolve has not changed. The important thing to remember whenever we're talking about the death penalty is we're dealing with the worst of the worst. And we're dealing with people that left a wake of destruction for victims behind them. I've seen it. I've seen what these kind of cases can do to family members. And I've seen the atrocities that have been done to some of these victims. And, you know, most of these people, this sentence needs to be carried out. They've earned it.
Yeah. We have a couple minutes left, but I know we've talked about this before, that there's a lot of misconceptions about the DA's office and what it does. So what would you want the public to know about your office?
Well, you know, everybody knows about the criminal division. But the reality is my office has both a criminal division and a civil division. We're the law firm for the county. And that's a massive job in and of itself. The county has 24 departments. It's got over a $500 million budget. It's a big job representing the county. Additionally, a lot of people don't know my office collects child support for the county. And I'm proud to say my office is the #1 child support collection agency in the state. Last year we collected over $27 million in child support that we turn around and give back to families in the community. We also have Child Protective Services unit that a lot of people don't know about. I mean, there's so many different things that my office is involved in, and that's why I love this job, is because I know the impact we can have on this community in a positive way.
Okay, just about 30 seconds left. Do you have any final message?
Thanks for having me on, and you know, I appreciate you asking about whether or not I'm going to run again. I fully intend on doing so, and I'm going to keep doing this job the way everybody expects me to.
All right, Chris, thank you so much for your time. I sure appreciate it. Well, that is it for this episode of Face the State. But for more information on all of this or to see past episodes, you can just head to our website. That's KTVN.com. Thank you so much for being with us. We'll see you next week.